simply as a model, your entire job is based on how you look is a challenge because no matter how talented you are, if you get a rash on your face or if you have a massive pimple or I don't know, like if something that happens that's completely outside of what what you're capable of, it's kind of done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a challenge because, like I said, it's out of your control to a certain extent.
Hi, I'm Olivia Cummings, and on this podcast, I'd like to introduce you to the people who inspire me in my life and work as a jeweler, designer, and the founder of Cleopatra's Bling. Through my work, I've come to know many Palestinians and Syrians who not only form an integral part of my business, but are also dear friends. I was excited to speak with Syrian-Palestinian Emirati model Lana Albeik, who combines activism, heritage and fashion in ways that defy stereotypes. Having worked for Elle, Vogue, Burberry and others, she became a muse for brands while never losing her strong sense of self. Cleopatra's Bling acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the country where we work and their continuing connections to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders and all Kulin Nations people, past, present and future. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, first of all, your career, and then I'd like to go into your background a little bit more. But can you tell us how you first became a model?
So it kind of just happened. I mean, I have a lot of friends in art school. So a lot of them are photographers, filmmakers, painters and stuff. And they would ask me to like be their modeling subject because most of them went to another university as me. So our days off were different.
Right.
Like our holidays and stuff. So it was perfect. It worked out perfectly. And I used to spend a lot of time in their studios and stuff. And then I would post the work on social media. And then I went to university with Hindash, who's like a makeup artist. And he's a good friend of mine. We're like siblings at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a class together and immediately clicked. And yeah, he reached out to me. He's like, listen, I have a campaign for a brand. Let's shoot it. Also, even before he had a campaign, we just we went to the studio and we just shot together for fun. We just had a blast and stuff. And from there on, it kind of like blew up, especially like with him. It just kind of moved up from there.
Great. And do you think that your identity as an Arabic woman influenced your relationship to modeling and fashion?
I mean, honestly, when I started doing it, I was just doing it for fun, of course. I wasn't really thinking like, oh, as a Palestinian Syrian girl, I have to do this, you know? But I think today there's a certain responsibility that comes with what you do, right? Just like any job and any career. And whenever you're a face of something, like your face is directly related to your work, there's more of a moral obligation to talk about your social stances towards certain things. And in that aspect, I think it comes by default that my identity will relate to me being a model, you know?
My opinion is the same as yours, which is that I don't think that it's okay to be an apolitical brand.
Yes.
And so I think maybe that model of the 80s where, you know, it was hustle, make money, get to the top, I don't think that is okay anymore. And I think particularly with our the awareness that we are able to gain through the internet, which is both the Wild West and the best thing we've ever had, I think. I don't think it's okay for brands to sort of sideline themselves about world issues. And obviously I think the world is paying more attention to Middle Eastern models now. Like even the big brands, they're taking a different approach as well to the Middle East because they're realizing, oh, there's a lot that's incredible that's going on here, and you know, your unique beauty and everything as well. So I'm glad you guys are getting the attention you deserve.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're as human as anyone else. So it's not just about being Middle Eastern and attention on Middle East. It's just we exist, like we live here. So it's just natural for us to get jobs, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
I really agree with you about like, I mean, at the end of the day, brands are run by people and breathe, and there's blood that runs through their veins. So it doesn't make sense for them to be bland, without any thoughts or direction.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of brands that haven't been involved in any sort of social cause or even just in the humanity of the brand, so the way that the people are treated and the stories that are told, you can see them sort of scrambling now to find some sort of relevance in a world that's changing, especially a post-COVID
100%.
world. And so it's interesting to see like who will rise to the top, not because of necessarily a product or a business model, but actually because I think people want more than that now, which is great because it means that, it'll weed out the people who aren't necessarily in it for the right reasons. In my opinion, a successful business it's not only about the money, of course, that sustains the structure, but then the way you fill that structure with stories and, humanity is the most, I think, telling thing of a business.
For sure. And then, like, anyways, you can't make money without a proper structure or a story.
Exactly.
How will people be drawn?
Well, yeah, especially if people are hopefully sort of focusing on less things but more meaning. So the, brands with meaning and good production practices will definitely do well, I think. Yeah, it's just such an interesting time to be in this industry, to be honest. And I'm sure you can feel it in what you do as well, that things are shifting.
100%, like just seeing it morph into what it's about to be, It's very, very interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you obviously, apart from being a model, you've mentioned your love of film before. So I wanted to find out about your sort of filmic influences and how you incorporate that into your modeling. And are there any characters in particular that inspire you when you want to express a particular emotion? Because obviously Arabic cinema is so expansive. And is there anything you can tell us about specifically in references?
I've always liked movies, and then when I went on to university for my bachelor's, I studied filmmaking. So there's that technical like knowledge that I have, which has really helped me as a model kind of like learn what the people behind the camera are doing, which has made things like a smoother on set, right? Like, because then you're kind of understanding what they're doing and it doesn't just look like a complicated mess. So that's really cool. I mean, I grew up much like most kids, like watching Disney, Disney movies. A lot of like the image I have of like stories or like what I expect from a story that's being told of me is like a nice, cute little happy ending. Also, there's a lot of surrealism or like fantasy and stuff. And that's something that I like to think of when I'm on set, just thinking about a fantasy world, this character that I'm embodying. In the clothes or the jewelry or the makeup that I'm supposed to portray. So that's, I think, the most fun that I like to think of. Like, I like to think of it as like, oh, I'm a new character now. I'm a new person. And I just want to really get into that and just play that part while the camera's on.
Yeah. Do you find it easier to get through like a long shoot if you've got sort of almost a bit of a distance from your real self and you have sort of a persona? Or do you not really think about it in such terms?
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Like 100%, that's kind of how it feels. Because it's just really fun to just kind of leave you for a second and just play some kind of part.
Yeah.
That doesn't really exist. Like, especially, when you're a model, there's a lot of expectations on how you should look like and how you should act. And a lot of it is not real. And it doesn't, it doesn't apply to the real world by, the body poses that they ask you to make or the way you're supposed to look and the way that the fabric is supposed to sit on your body, which is hardly ever realistic. So I think like for a moment, it's nice to leave like the reality world and live that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just think about how the picture is going to turn out or a video.
Yeah. And how have your family and your experiences growing up shaped your approach to your career?
When I first started modeling, they weren't really up for it. Like they were very against it. And there has been a few times where like big shoots would come out. So like a billboard or a magazine or something or like a cover. And they wouldn't be super excited about it. But with time, they've gotten a bit more open to it because I think besides the fact that it's like like traditions, like they just don't like a girl being that her face is her career.
Yeah.
You know, it's not really a very honorable thing or whatever. But it's also that my parents worked really hard on getting me like paying tuition for the university I went to. I went to like one of the expensive ones in Dubai. So it's kind of like really like, is this what you're doing after after all of this? But I think it's quite related and everything. And at the end of the day, they are slowly starting to understand what I'm doing and like what it means. And whenever I pass a milestone, they're seeing the implications and like just the way up.
Yeah.
And they're slowly starting to kind of appreciate it as well.
That's great. And life is long. We never know what we'll be doing in 15, 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I think we always
Yeah,
forget
for
that.
sure.
We always feel like we're stuck in what we're doing. And then it's like life changes all the
Yeah.
time.
They always feel like it's just what's happening now, you know, and not like what could happen because
Exactly.
I'm doing this now.
What have been some of your greatest challenges within the fashion industry, you know, whether or not it's on set or just in general, things that you found hard to deal with?
Maintaining an appearance that would work, that would sell, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So always thinking about my weight, always thinking about my height, the clothes I wear and how I wear them, and my social media presence, because that has become any model's Polaroids to some extent. My presence with clients and stuff like that, you know, like just leaving impressions. I think the fact that a lot of what I do is not a lot of what I do, like just simply as a model, your entire job is based on how you look is a challenge, because no matter how talented you are, if you get a rash on your face or if you have a massive pimple or I don't know, like if something that happens that's completely outside of what what you're capable of,
Yeah.
it's kind of done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a challenge because, like I said, it's out of your control to a certain extent.
Well, you're just a human. You're going to get a rash and a pimple every now and again.
Yeah, of course. And
Everybody
sometimes
else does. So.
I want to, yeah, and sometimes I just want to eat a little more.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah, and these kind of things are, I think, the obvious thing that most models go through.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how you would, if you stopped modeling for whatever reason, if you would sort of slip out of that pressure mentality, or if you would sort of completely let go of it. Because I think, I mean, not that I can compare myself to you because my job doesn't revolve around personally what I look like, but I still relate to what you're saying, and I'm not a model. So it's interesting.
Yeah, most women feel that way as it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's a hard line to thread, you know? And I think the fact that most women feel that also make it a bit like, yeah, so what? Every job sucks in its own way, you know?
It doesn't,
like you start to think like, okay, yeah, I would have been worried about this regardless, so I might as well just get paid for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's such a hardcore approach. And do you think, because I don't know what it's like where you're based in Dubai or where you're from and your family culture, but do you think that the pressure on women is comparable to the pressure on women in Europe and the West, or do you think there's different kinds of pressures but just as many, if that makes sense?
Different kinds for sure. Like for me, I was always, my mom was always making sure I know how skinny I am. And is always trying to feed me more, and always like she'd always say, you look sick because of how skinny you are and stuff. Again, I grew up hearing these things, you know? So definitely it's kind of like the opposite in some way, but then there's also the shaming to the other side. So
Right.
it's really just about, just because the body standard is not to be skinny doesn't mean there's no struggle about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they still expect you to a very specific way.
Yeah. And
similarly to how you're expected to look very skinny, you know?
And probably also social pressures, you know, to be like a woman who has children and gets married and all of those things is a different kind of expectation. I know I'm not even Turkish, and when I go back to Turkey, everyone's like, so are you married yet? And I'm like, no, and they're disappointed. I'm like, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. At every at every like event,
Every family
within
event.
my family, we're like, can't wait to see you get married. And it's like, why are we talking about this now?
Yeah. Can we just
Like, how did we
focus
get here?
on the baklava and
Yes.
the beautiful food?
Can
Yeah.
we just focus on my little brother who just graduated high school? Like,
Yeah.
how did we
Yeah. Why are we onto
disconnect?
my marital status?
Yeah, exactly.
So how would you give
Yeah.
if someone came to you and said, I want to become a model or get into the fashion industry, sort of what would be your advice to them?
First, I'll tell them don't make that your number, like the only thing you do. Because, I mean, I know times are changing now, and I'm kind of hoping that they can still change towards something positive. But
Yeah.
we all know that by the time you get your first wrinkle or you stop being called that you're in your 20s, there's kind of like that's it, that's your dead end for your modeling career. So that's something I always tell them, like, try to be as passionate as you are about whatever you love and keep that there. Because in the end, it's a phase that you go through and you enjoy and it's amazing and stuff. But it's not the only thing that will be around for you in your life. I know there's a lot of models that are still working, but that's also relying on the kind of work that they do to their face to still keep them young, you know? And that's not exactly a good plan for a standard person who might not have that kind of support in their life, you know? So that's my first piece of advice. And then other than that, the second piece of advice is always to say, you need to have thick skin and like not listen to what mean people have to say, because the thing is about our industry is that an opinion is like a professional statement.
Yeah.
You know, if someone calls you not pretty or if someone calls you fat or whatever, it's less an opinion or less just a thing that they're throwing on you rather than it's more like oh, this is a fact and this is my professional opinion that affects this shoot that we're about to have
Yeah.
or like the billboard we're about to put up,
I
stuff like
can't
that.
believe people say
So
that.
thick skin is really, yeah, you know what comment I always get? It's so funny. It's like, oh, you're not like other girls, you're like not pretty, like you look interesting. And it's always like, what makes you think anyone wants to hear that, even if I'm not at all moved by your words? What you tell me does not matter. I don't even know you enough to do that. But
Yeah.
why do you think that's the thing anyone wants to hear, you know?
Well, if it makes you feel better, that's one of the most common pieces of feedback that I get about my face. So I know how it feels. It's an odd thing to say.
Like,
Interesting.
isn't
It's
it
like,
strange? The thing is,
yeah, unusual actually is the one
like
I
it
get.
doesn't
I
faze
have an
me anymore.
unusual.
I'm over it.
Oh, me too. I'm just like, oh,
It-
I'm
it-
glad you think I'm unusual. But it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like, oh, thanks for staring at my face long enough to form these words. But it's like, why? Like, for me, it turned into this thing of like, okay, now I know what kind of character you are.
I think it's sort of an almost a neoliberalistic approach to feeling like your opinion matters all the time, because we've been told
Yeah.
in the last 15 years that we should express ourselves because of all the, Instagram therapists that talk about expressing
Yeah.
your feelings. And it's like, yeah, to a certain extent, but there's a time and a place. And sometimes it's just best not to say anything at all,
Yeah.
because you have this fleeting moment of a thought that is just a thought and it will pass and you won't lose sleep over it. So if it's not going to be well received by somebody, it shouldn't be your
Why?
motivation to just get it off your chest, you know? It's like you can just
100%.
leave that comment. We have funny people commenting sometimes, very rarely, but sort of on Instagram or Facebook just to tell me that they think the jewelry is too expensive or too this or too that. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to buy it.
Yeah, you don't have to buy it. It's cool. Like,
Yeah. So do you find, in light of all of obviously the strange comments you get, do you find that it's difficult to retain your sense of identity when you get comments like that? Or do you feel sort of a defiance to these comments where you're just like, well, kind of fuck you, I'm just going to be myself? Or do you find yourself having to say to yourself, it's okay, it's just someone's silly little comment and it's not going to affect me?
yeah, I think in the beginning it was definitely like, oh, it's okay. It's just a comment. I don't know this person. But now it reached a point where like I think it's hilarious. I think it's so funny because like I've been modeling for what, 6 years? Like since 2016. Yeah, so 6 years now. And it's like I've made it to a point where it's like, if you think that when you see me, you're like a bit, oh, damn, I don't know why she's a model, then I think that's so funny. Because it's like, halas, I've been doing it for long enough and I've done enough for me to think that this is just funny of you to say.
Yeah.
Like what you said doesn't matter because I've done what I've done already. It's proved to me enough. And that's what matters. Like it proved to me that I can do it.
Yeah.
And if you think I can't, then that's hilarious because if you look at what I've done, I did.
Yeah. So factually, what you're saying is wrong. So how do you prepare for a shoot then? Do you sort of get into a certain mindset or do you just walk on and think whatever comes, comes?
I think definitely I need to be confident with how I look, right? So for sure, like a gym session the day before is good because it makes me feel confident, it makes me feel comfortable in my body and stuff. Eating good for sure. Sleeping well is the most important actually from all of them. Like I can skip all the others, but sleeping well is the number one thing. And a good playlist in the morning that will get me in the mood. And during shoot, I have to have like a playlist that works with the mood that they want.
Right.
Because again, when I said that like I'm excited to get into this new character that's not me and just pretend to be her for a bit, you kind of need the soundtrack of your character, of your movie to be playing. So I think that's the most important part of the ritual besides sleeping.
Yes, I know. Nothing works without sleep, honestly. You've mentioned how liberating you found the time and resources dedicated to students at university prior to entering the real world of professional life. Not only this, but you would like to become a professor one day. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, actually, my dream is to, like, the thing is, it's just the word professor is the title that explains what I feel.
Yeah.
But I really want to teach, and I want to sit and talk with like a younger generation because I just feel it's so interesting to see, like right now where I'm shooting, there's a lot of girls who are considerably younger than me. Like everyone is 11, there's 11 years younger than me, there's like 7 years younger than me, and there's like 4. So I'm kind of like the oldest one between the cast, and it's just so interesting to see how they think and the way they absorb information. And it's also so nice to share knowledge like together. I just love that so much. And I just really want to get into that in the realm of like Middle Eastern studies or like storytelling, a combination of these things. Like I just find it a very, very interesting thing to see what today or the future generation thinks versus like what I think, and also to share that, like exchange knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to do. I don't know if I'll end up doing it. I hope so. I hope like the world takes me that way, but that's what I hope to do one day.
Inshallah. Do you know the field of study you would like to do, or?
I think I would like to like do Middle Eastern studies and specifically about the Levant, whether it's with food or arts.
The Levant is
somewhere
the
like
best. Yes. All the food. Oh my gosh, you guys kill me.
You should visit one day.
I really want to.
I'd love to host you.
Yes. Oh, I'd love to come visit.
My mom's an amazing cook. And like, I know it's easy to say because it's my mom, but no, like
I
my mom
believe
comes
you.
from
So can you tell us also what sort of misunderstood or not widely known about Palestinian Syrian community outside of it?
I guess they think, I think a lot of a big misconception is thinking that we're Bedouins or we come from a desert and stuff. I think Syria is one of the most green countries in the Levant. And it's very, very cultured. Like if you studied in Syria and in specific universities there, for example, and just to say that it's very metropolitan.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. The Syrians I've met are so educated and cultured, and they speak perfect English. Like they're just astonishingly rich in culture.
Like Syria and Egypt, I would say, are the top culturally. I would even educationally rich.
Yeah,
especially back in the day, you know.
So now we've spoken about food, which always gets my interest. Like literally at this moment, I'm planning to go to this incredible Syrian restaurant here in Melbourne that's run by a Syrian family who came out to Australia, I think, after the war started. And I love going there because it's super authentic. But I wanted to know if you were to cook a meal, maybe with the help of your mom, What would be like a go-to for you guys? Because you mentioned she's an incredible cook. I'm just so curious to know like some of the things she would impress me with when I come visit.
For sure, like stuffed vine leaves.
Okay.
Everyone comes over for that. And for me, my favorite personal is the stuffed eggplants and stuffed zucchini.
Oh my gosh. And is that served with, it's because I've noticed in Syrian cuisine that the yogurt is cooked a lot more than, for example, in Turkish where it's sort of served as a cold side, like when you have your dolma or have you ever had their Turkish dumplings, but they're served with yogurt on top, but the yogurt's always cool, like it's added afterwards, whereas I loved in like the sour cooked yogurt in Syrian cuisine.
Yeah. So in Syrian cuisine, we only cook the yogurt when it's a main dish as well.
Right.
So we do it so that we soak in it either. Have you tried kubbe?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And Syrian kubbe is crazy.
It's crazy. What's your favorite? Like what's your, go-to Syrian or Palestinian meal?
I think, like I said, mahshi is my top. Like it's my favorite ever.
Yum.
But I also like we have this thing called fasulia. So it's a very specific type of bean. It's like the green one, the long, skinny green one.
So fasulia is bean in Turkish. So I think they've obviously taken that straight from Arabic.
How many languages do you speak?
5.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Mashallah, that's crazy. What are they?
Well, I'm not going to count Arabic. I never count Arabic because I feel like mastering Arabic is like another level. Plus, I've never lived in an Arabic speaking country, so I feel like that's also one of the prerequisites, like you need to live and speak it. So French is my best by far, but I lived in Paris for 6 years, and did my master's in Paris. I speak Italian, Turkish, German, and then English, but English I had no choice, but I'm glad I speak it. And I studied Arabic, but that was a long time ago, and then sort of I left Australia, and I think Turkish took up such a huge part of my head because it's so different from anything.
It requires a lot.
It's very you have no foundation, whereas with French, when I went to Italy to live there, I was like, oh, okay, I can speak this in a few months, honestly, because my Latin base.
Really?
Yeah, because of the Latin base. So it's the same with sort of Spanish or Portuguese. Like I can read Spanish and understand it. Like I can understand like 80% of spoken Spanish if I'm just listening, purely because of Italian and French. Okay. Whereas Turkish, it was like you are starting from level -1, like like you have there's nothing that will help you here. Do you know what I mean? So
I can imagine.
Yeah, so that was definitely the one that I've put the most effort into to be able to be fluent and live there and conduct my business in Turkish. But yeah, Arabic is definitely my lifelong kind of dream. Yeah.
A lot of Arabs don't speak Arabic these days.
I know. Yeah, not that I know from knowing. I know because my teacher's told me, and he said like to study Fusha, it's like sometimes that can be quite ostracizing because if you speak like a literary Quranic Arabic, like it's, you know what I mean? You need like a little bit of a mix.
No one does that, yeah.
No, you need a mix of, the literary Arabic with the street language. I think I would probably, because I'm influenced highly by him and I have a lot of Syrian friends, I would probably do Syrian, Jordanian, sort of Levant region Arabic.
Yeah, that's one. It's the easiest one to understand. The thing is, what's so interesting, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this before, but like Egypt and Syria, most of pop culture came from these two places. So a lot of movies, TV, books, everything would come from either Palestinian, Syrian, Lebanese writers, as well as Egyptian. So today, if you watch any black and white movie that's Arabic, it's most likely Egyptian.
But when you think about it, it's a huge chunk of the world that speaks Arabic.
Yeah.
Like
that's like it's half a continent and another half,
Yeah, so it is, it is understandable that there are so many dialects, like even within the English language, There's so many accents. So, but, you know, there's so many more Arabic speakers as a native language, I mean. Yeah, it's honestly so fascinating. It's such a beautiful language, I think. I really think it's
It is. I love it. Like, I really love, and I'm very grateful for my family for raising me the way that, like, I'm able to speak, read, and write and stuff, you know?
You know, and they say in Turkish, one language, one person. So if you don't speak the language of another person, which obviously we don't expect everyone to speak every language, but by learning another language or at least making an effort to and connecting with someone, you make a connection with someone that you wouldn't have alternatively. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's really nice, actually. Very true.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us first thing in the morning as well with the time difference.
No, of course.
And I look forward to eating with your mother too. Tell her I say
yes.
See you soon.
We'll be expecting you.
This was the Cleopatra's Bling podcast with me, Olivia Cummings. Next time,
you know, I was putting forward symbols and motifs and amulets, which I've always sort of drawn upon. But I made a conscious decision to sort of have that separation.
Until then, stay curious.